Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're exploring a concept that, honestly, would have sounded completely absurd just a decade ago. We are asking, can a completely camera-free image be cinematically real? We're leaping headfirst into the uncharted territory of AI-generated cinema. Based on the truly groundbreaking work of Dr. Joni Gutierrez, we're going to unpack a completely new framework called AI Cinematic Realism, or AICR. Consider this explainer your personal journey into the new language of synthetic cinema, a place where we literally have to rethink what truth on a screen even looks like.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for understanding this massive paradigm shift in media. We're going to cover the photographic trace severed, a history of realist refusals, the extended creative mind, architectures of synthetic cinema, and finally, we'll wrap up with the ethics of accountable authorship.
Section 1. The photographic trace severed, an ontological rupture.
To really grasp this, we have to recognize a fundamental ground-up change in what a cinematic image actually is. You see, for over a century, everything we watched on film relied on light physically imprinting a specific moment in time onto a recording device. But generative AI completely severs that physical connection. Because that physical link to light is gone, you can't look at an AI-generated image, which is just statistically synthesized from learned patterns, right, and ask, did this actually happen? The evidentiary floor has completely dropped out. So AICR asserts that we have to make a major pivot. We must shift from a forensic inquiry of the pixels, asking, is this real, to a philosophical and emotional investigation asking, is this true? Does this image persuade the heart and body? Realism essentially stops being about the camera and becomes entirely about the felt experience.
And this shift is absolutely crucial, because right now, we're kind of stuck between what Gutierrez calls the twin failures. On one hand, we have demo culture. You know the ones, those shiny, hyper-realistic but totally hollow videos of drone flights over non-existent sci-fi landscapes. It's just a pure tech showcase. On the other hand, we have deep fake panic, which is driven by the very real fear of faked political audio or deceptive imagery, treating all synthetic media purely as a lie. AICR rejects both of these extremes, completely. Instead of just showing off or panicking, it asks a much better question. What can synthetic media honestly and meaningfully communicate to us?
Section 2. A history of realist refusals, redefining cinematic truth.
Now, it's easy to look at AI as this unprecedented alien technology, right? But redefining cinematic truth is actually part of a long, rich historical tradition. We have always broken the old rules to find new truths, and this brilliantly illustrates that evolution. In the 1940s, Italian neorealism pushed back against artificial studio gloss to show the gritty reality of post-war life. Then in the 1960s, cinema verité rejected staged narratives in favor of a raw observational truth. By 1995, the Dogme 95 movement used strict formal constraints to force a sense of real presence. Each of these movements redefined what cinema was even for. AI Cinematic Realism is just the newest chapter in this ongoing evolution, redefining truth without a camera at all.
Section 3. The extended creative mind, theoretical foundations.
So, we've talked about the history. Now let's dig into the underlying theory. How does the human brain and our nervous system actually interact with these synthetic, camera-free images? To understand this, we draw on phenomenology, specifically the work of philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty. This directly grounds these abstract theories into the human body. The core idea here is that our nervous system responds to synthetic patterns as if they are continuous with our actual lived experience. When you watch a powerful AI-generated scene, your body physically reacts. Your heart rate might change, you might feel tension or joy. The realism is felt right there in your nervous system. It's not verified by checking if the event actually took place in the physical world.
Building enthusiastically on that bodily experience, we look at the extended mind framework from Clark and Chalmers. Now this is where it gets genuinely mind-bending. The generative AI system isn't just a tool, like a hammer or even a traditional camera. It actually acts as a cognitive scaffold. This means the filmmaker's creative mind actively extends into the AI's latent space itself. The human and the machine are engaged in this deeply intertwined creative feedback loop. It's a wildly fascinating concept, and honestly, it serves as the absolute load-bearing pillar of how synthetic cinema is actually brought to life.
Section 4. Architectures of synthetic cinema, putting it into practice.
So how do we take those lofty philosophical theories and translate them into the practical, day-to-day architecture of creating a synthetic film? Well, it starts with what's called the ideational frame. This is the process of taking classical, time-tested cinematic craft, things you already know, like directorial control, world building, lighting, and performance, and mapping them directly into a generative vocabulary. You're absolutely still directing, but instead of physically moving a light on a set, you might prompt the AI to simulate golden hour lighting cutting through a dusty window. You're navigating a latent space rather than a physical one.
Let's move to and see how this builds step by step through the three-strata model. First is the perceptual layer. What do we literally see and hear? Next is the environmental layer. How does this synthetic world actually function and feel? And finally, the authorial layer. What is the creator's overarching intent and the emotional truth behind the synthesis? Meaning is carefully built by stacking these specific layers on top of one another.
And a huge part of that perceptual layer involves a concept I find absolutely fascinating: glitches texture. We all know those classic AI giveaways, right? A character suddenly sprouting 6 fingers, or background objects just melting into one another. Well, instead of looking at these AI flaws, the weird temporal shimmer, the slight morphing, the strange dream logic, as bugs that need to be fixed, AICR reclaims them. They are reframed positively as honest signals of a synthetic origin. They're actually the aesthetic signature of this new medium. Just like film grain tells you you're watching analog celluloid, that shifting hand or subtle background morph tells you you are watching synthetic cinema. It's not an error at all. It's the medium's honest voice.
Section 5. Ethics of accountable authorship, the highest stakes.
Okay, we need to slow down the pace here for a second, because as we look at the immense power of this new medium, we have to tackle the profound ethical implications involved. Because we are relying on felt truth rather than physical reality, the potential for harm is incredibly real. Let's walk through these. First, information asymmetry. The creator knows the video is synthetic, but the audience might not. This is a massive vector for manipulation. Second, likeness and labor. Simulating real human performers without their active consent isn't just a quirky aesthetic choice, it is a strict ethical violation. And third, collective memory. Using AI to reconstruct historical events runs the severe risk of shaping public memory with fake history that has zero basis in recorded reality. As a viewer, this is exactly why you must remain vigilant. Emotional resonance is a powerful artistic tool, for sure, but it absolutely cannot become a free pass to justify deceptive or non-consensual content.
Which brings us to the core doctrine of this entire framework. Authorship is choices, all the way down. The maker is the ultimate moral agent. You are the one who prompts the machine, you curate the outputs, and you choose to hit publish. The machine did it or the AI hallucinated that is never, ever a valid alibi. Accountability rests entirely on the human extending their mind into the machine. So we'll leave you with this final provocative question to ponder as we wrap up today's explainer. Is emotional truth a stable enough standard for the future of our media, or could it be used to justify something deeply troubling? AI Cinematic Realism asks synthetic media not to hide and become invisible, but to become an honest, accountable new language for cinema. But humanity really has to decide if we are actually ready for the immense responsibility that comes with it. Think about that the next time a compelling piece of media makes you feel something deeply, before you even ask if it physically happened. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. And as always, keep questioning what you see.